In your child life, did you look up to somebody and like did you want to be just like them?
Yes, I did. I looked up to my grandparents, my grandmother especially. She was a good, loving Christian woman, and I just admired her greatly. Of course, I fell in love with Jesus at a young age. I was about 13, and I wanted to be like Jesus. But the human person was my grandmother. I have great respect and admiration for my own mother. However, my grandmother was very pivotal in my upbringing and in my relationship with Christ. And the other person was Florence Nightingale. I wanted to be a nurse like Florence Nightingale. I'd read about her in a book, and I was just thrilled with how she sacrificed herself to give the others.
I have a question. Well, two actually. Who is your hero like today?
My hero today, of course, second to Christ, is Dr. Bishop Jimmy R. Horton, a man who loves God and has sacrificed so much. Bishop Horton and his wife, Lady Michelle, I admire them a great deal because of their love of Christ and their sacrifice and their love for their sheep, their church family, and for the community. My mother I admire greatly. She has overcome so many obstacles. She's such a beautiful, precious sweetheart of a woman. I could go on and on, so many saints in the house of the Lord, but especially Bishop and Lady Michelle and my own mother.
Also, I just wanted to know, like, who supports you in your decisions today? Like when you decide to do certain things, who do you know that they support you?
Well, I have a very loving family. My mother's very, very supportive. She knows that I'm a woman of God, and she respects that, and she's a woman of God, and so she's very supportive. I have a wonderful mother. My grandchildren, they're just awesome. I have 12, and the two oldest I spend a great deal of time with, and they're just dear to my heart. And I have many saints within Gospel Mission Temple, also too, Evangelist Tammy Trice, Missionary Summers, and then of course my precious daughter, my niece-daughter, she's actually my biological niece, but I've raised her as my daughter, and she's been so supportive. And also I have great admiration for her because she's just been a very, very strong support for me. And then there's Sister Felicia and Sister Mary. I could go on and on and on.
I have a question. How did you feel about the segregation of people? Like, how did you feel? Do you think that was right when the whites got to do more than? How did you feel about that?
Well, it wasn't right. It certainly wasn't right, and it certainly wasn't God's way. It was very uncomfortable as a child. We would be on a school bus riding for hours to get to our little rundown school, and we'd pass these beautiful schools, and many times white children would be out heckling and calling us names and throwing things at the bus, and it was just ugly. And I remember the books that we got, they had terrible names written in them, and things like, the N-word and all kind of derogatory names, and go back to Africa, and then there were entire sections torn out of the textbooks. I remember saying to the teacher, this entire section is torn out of the textbook. What are we going to do? And she said, we're going to learn the parts that are there. We're not going to worry about what's not there. I like that.
I have two questions.
Yes.
The first one being, do you think anything good came out of you being moved from one place to the other because of segregation?
Yes, there's some good things. There were some negative things. Having grown up in a segregated environment all of my teachers were black, and my teachers were also my Sunday school teachers. So you saw them at church, you saw them at school, and they taught us a mission, a sense of belief in that through God you could do anything, all things are possible. With education, no matter how horrible it is, you can make it. They taught us to believe in who we were and to feel good about our black skin, to feel good about our hair, to feel good about who we were. So that was awesome. When things went to integration, that was taken away. Because at the time, there weren't very few black teachers at all that went through the integration process. So black children were taken and put in white schools where they really weren't wanted. And truly, they were just ignored. So that was tough. That was horrendous. So we felt like non-people. Thank goodness we had a sense of who we were and community, so that we believed in ourselves when no one else did. So there were good and bad things. We had better books, bigger classrooms, even more educated teachers, but the teachers that weren't as educated gave us what they had, and they gave us a sense of love and belief in ourselves, and truly that is lacking in so many classrooms today.
My second question is, when you were younger, how did you get from where you were to Iowa?
I rode on a train, and back then it was a train for colored people only, and that's what we were called back in those days. So there was a train that said for colored people only, and so I had to sit on that car separated from the for whites only. And on my way up here, there was a white lady who befriended me, which was kind of frightening because I didn't know whether she was going to harm me or if she was really going to befriend me. But she was a good woman, and she looked after me and made sure I got to Davenport, Iowa. And that helped me to see a lot concerning white people, and that and I was not raised to dislike white people. I just didn't know any that were kind, and so that taught me a lot. And so racism never really took root in its ugly form in my heart.